If opportunity doesn't knock, build a door. Milton Berle. My friends, opportunity knocks every single day in these markets, and your door to getting into it is being able to read price movement. Now we see markets swinging back up after that big drop yesterday, at least when we look at the S&P 500, the NASDAQ 100, 20-year bonds, and Bitcoin. So let's jump into these charts, see where we are, where things stand. We see the S&P up 0.73% as we look at the overall mood of the market. Of course, we have already pegged our profit point. You can see where things jumped down. Let me zoom. I tell you what, I'm going to zoom in here for you. On the half-day chart, you can see where things stopped. We had things track on down from a jumping in point at the worst spot you could jump into on Friday. That was Friday the 22nd. Things moved down. Then they popped up. Get that to close there for you. Then they moved down again and triggered. What did we do at that point? Sold half of our position, let the rest of it ride. We can see how things were down in the morning, popped up in the afternoon. Volume is below where it had spiked on the come down back on Friday afternoon. That was the second Friday, not the first Friday where we jumped in. And you notice what I always try to do is jump in at the worst point. Well, I always jump in at the worst point for you, just so you can track it. As if you're as dumb as you can be on your jumping in point. I don't mean dumb, but you just don't choose the best point. And you might not be able to if it's Friday afternoon. So what happens if that's the time you choose to jump in? That's what we always choose, because that is, of course, when our weekly vertical crossover is closing. And then, of course, we ride that pony, hoping that it will make a buck for us. In our practice trade, we saw that we got really close. You can see here how close we got on that following Wednesday. Then things popped up, but they rolled back down again. Now they're popping up a little bit. Maybe this trade's over. We sold half of our position. The other half is riding, hoping that things will continue to go down. Maybe they don't. If they don't, and we don't otherwise have a trigger to get us out before it goes up here and breaks even, of course, you can sell right at this spot, and you still get to keep what? You get to keep your 1.83%. If it goes further, like we saw happen right here, where it went up 12%, that's beautiful. Now, of course, for a short trade, what are we trading? You could either, of course, be buying an option in your practice trade on the S&P 500, or you're into SH, which again, we talk about this. I don't want to repeat it for everybody who's been here for years, but of course, that is our short fund. It's a single inverse of the S&P 500. So as we look at things still moving in the right direction. We will continue to watch, wait, and see if we're going to be able to run our trade along here. So let's now move on to where we are on the NASDAQ 100. Now, NASDAQ, a little different than the S&P. You can see where we jumped in, of course, again on a Friday at the worst spot, moved down, never got even close to tagging out. And then we've seen a shortened candle drawing this week, up much more, 1.36% for the day. As we zoom in, we can see that price is still below that weekly trend line. We had a green candle on the last one, looking weak. As we look at where things are, I'm on the 2-day chart now. As we look at where things are now, we do have a red spinning top. We can see where things plumbed lower than that prior candle, and we see our down volume is above the average. Now, as we look a little closer and get into the half-day chart, you can see where, similar to the S&P chart, things started off, dropped, didn't get as low, popped up actually higher, slid sideways and down. Yesterday was a good down day for everything, but as we look at where we are today, we can see we had higher than average volume in the morning, lots of indecision, and popped up in the afternoon. So we're in a bit of the loss category right now. We still, though, overall, we've got downward pressure. We will wait, watch, and see. If we decide to pull this trade, we will pull it. We haven't violated our trend line on the half-day or on the 2-day charts. Now, again, this is the weekly trend line on both those charts, and we are in a down move. So we're watching carefully to make a decision on what we need to do here. Now, let's move on from the NASDAQ 100 out of stocks totally into bonds. Bonds up for the day, kicking up 1.41%. Now, of course, bonds moving in the right direction. Of course, what did we do with bonds on the practice trade? Well, I can show you it happened a few days ago when things rolled back over and started heading down. Of course, they very quickly from that Friday, by Monday afternoon, it had already hit the 2.10% up and out on TBF, because that is the inverse fund to 20-year bonds. Tango Bravo Foxtrot. It is the ProShare single short. And of course, it popped up enough for us to be able to jump into that on a down trade and execute from it 2.10%, letting, of course, the rest of it ride. How long do you let it ride? You can let it ride 2 ATRs, 3 ATRs. You can actually let it ride until you get tired and you get a signal that says, hey, you need to get out, or you're just happy with your profit. If you think it's going to keep going, now you might say, well, what do we do right now? It's kicked back a little bit. It did that earlier. It did that here, back on Friday the 29th. So what are we waiting for? Well, again, we've just had it kick up today for the first time since then. We'll keep an eye on things. And again, if we start seeing penetrations of our trend lines, if we start seeing, lots of signals of things moving up a great deal, we can pull that trade at any time. You've already made 2.10% and a whole lot more on this down trade. And again, you can take your profit anytime in your practice trade. What about gold? Gold almost flat, down 0.01% for the day. As we look at gold here, of course, what do you see that happened intraday? As we look, we can see we got awfully close to cashing out at 1.69% in the down move. Now, again, we are playing with this one because there's really no inverse fund in gold. There is DGZ, Delta Golf Zulu, DGZ, yes, Delta Golf Zulu. The problem with it is a single short, but it is very illiquid, meaning there's a large difference between the bid and the ask. So when that happens, it tells you it's illiquid because the minute you buy in, you're automatically underwater a significant amount. So we don't do that. If we're going to short gold, of course, we do it with options, and you can sure practice trade those. You want to learn how to practice trade options? Become a Patreon member at any of the levels of support. The first thing you get from us is a 3-part series, Options Made Simple the Charting Wealth Way. Gives you the knowledge you need to immediately start practice trading options. So let's move from gold, and lastly, we will go to, well, let me make sure I've told, yes, well below the weekly on the weekly trend line on both the 2-day and the half-day. Let's go to Bitcoin at this point. What do we have going on Bitcoin? Well, we can see that it's up 1.48% for the day. We can see where, again, Bitcoin started going into the green back on the week beginning the 18th of September and continues to click up a little bit. It's not a completely flat line here. It is moving up some, but Bitcoin looks like it's trying to tick up as it has done these other times. And again, it just looks like it pops up, rolls back, pops up, rolls back, pops up, rolls back. It's like when it pops up, people take profits and drive it back down. Not quite sure what's happening, but does appear, again, to be trying to edge up. So we'll keep an eye on it. I don't know if any of you all are practice trading it. If you found something other than this pattern that started at the beginning of the year, not anything I would feel great about riding a wave on, because it doesn't conform to any of the things we teach. I know it is completely different. I would never have tracked it, but you guys wanted me to do it, and we did have these ETFs created a couple of years ago, so we've started looking at it. That is where Bitcoin is for the day. We do see a green candle forming. Last week's weekly candle was a little bit green, but weak. You can see on the 2-day chart was down for 4 of those 5 days. And again, this week trying to edge up. That is where we are. We always love to hear from you. If you have questions, problems, concerns, never hesitate to reach out to us. CW@chartingwealth.com. God bless, my friends. All the best from the whole team at Charting Wealth World Headquarters.